I think Obama, along with pretty much every other politician these days, simply exploits events for whatever purpose of ambition they have in mind. I think it's one of the features of the corruption of our present way of doing politics that we don't really focus on things in a substantive way. And when we do, we follow a storyline that's basically fabricated without much regard to the facts, as you were just suggesting. And I think that that's because, again, it's all done for tendentious purposes. In the case of the South Carolina shooting, the thing that has really struck me is that South Carolina, in terms of race, is full of targets of opportunity if you're a racist, right? There are lots of black folks in South Carolina, as there are in North Carolina, where my mother came from. So if somebody picks out as a specific target a church, why is it that one focuses only on the race and not on the Christianity? Meanwhile, throughout the world, Christians are being persecuted and killed, and in this country, ridiculed and taken to task for fundamental beliefs that are now being called into question because people want to satisfy this or that sense of themselves and their sexual passions and so forth and so on. But nobody bothers to suggest that the environment of deep hostility and persecution now being created throughout the world against Christians has something to do with that. And that's because many of our politicians here, including Obama himself, have helped to foment that environment of hostility. And so the last thing they want to do is call attention to it. They're always ready to play the race card. But these days, as I have known in my own career in America, I think that any animosity based on race pales in comparison to the animosity that I have encountered based on my Christian faith.
Okay, so you believe that this whole episode, the shooting, was motivated more by the fact that it was a church and there were Christians in there than by the race of those people who were in there?
Well, it's a question you have to ask, because here you had an individual who could have focused on any number of targets that involve black folks. In South Carolina, there's not exactly a dearth of black people in the state, nor of symbols, of things that are associated with the black past and the black heritage. To single out the church, which is the institution that exemplifies the very faith that leads many black folks, for instance, to line up against the destruction of traditional marriage, which Obama and others are now pushing for, that will put them in a position of choosing between God and man, and many will resist, many will stand with God. I think that an act which tends to intimidate them, make them feel afraid of standing forward in their faith, I think we ought to be scratching our heads and wondering whether there is an evil at work that's more directed at God and Christianity than it is in existence, so that politicians can play games with race that divide our people.